morning. Today I am taking all of my granny squares that I made for my bag, and I am going to show you my joining stitch and how I join them together. We'll see how this works. I'm in a different spot here, so I might be able to read. I might not be able to read. As soon as I touch the table, everything bounces, but yeah, we'll see if we can make it work. But I wanted you to be able to see. I'm going to start putting my granny squares together, and this is how I'm going to do it. This is my stack that I have here, and it takes 13 granny squares to make one bag. Thank you for everybody that's joining. I do apologize, the camera's a little bit farther away than it usually is, so I can't really, just so you guys can see what I'm doing here. I will move things over once I get this all put together. I'll pause the live and I'll go back to where I usually sit so that I can show you things a little bit closer. But to show you how I set up the granny squares, I usually have these big gigantic safety pins, and my squares are upside down on the table because I'm going to pin them from the inside of the bag, and it takes 13. So I'm going to put one pin on the side of each granny square for now, just to hold the shape together. And then got my kitties here. Good morning, everybody. Janie, if you're here already, good morning. And thank you. I don't know if you got my message last night, but boy, I really appreciated that. Unnecessary, but I did appreciate it. So I'm just going to go around and I'm going to safety pin all my squares together, because if I pin them all together first, then I can just do pretty much just 4 straight lines of join all the way up and around the bag, and I don't have to worry about just in between each particular stitch. So there's the first 4 together. I should have pulled up my let me grab my bag so I can just, I'll be right back. So I can just kind of use it as a reference. So this is the other bag. Sorry about that. Sorry about the bouncing. So this is the other bag, but I need to kind of like use a reference for my how I put them out, because I didn't print one out. 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need 1, 2. This one's going to go up here. It is a rather large bag. Like beach bag, large bag, tote bag. When I'm done with them, they'll be fully lined and they'll be really sturdy. Okay, so I don't know if you can see so far. I have this many put so far. I don't know how, let me see if I can move that down a little bit so you guys can see as I move it up. So these 2 points are going to be my handles, and then I'm going to work my way down and continue to make sure that I have all the granny squares for one side facing in one direction, and then this is the sides. I'm still pinning together. All my stuff back. You can see how it takes away. I had to put it at the kitchen table to do this part of it. I will kind of move it around so that you can see after I get it all pinned together. But I am going to pin this all together pretty well, because instead of just joining one square at a time and then putting them all together, I want to be able to just go up and around the bag and do a seam, and then up and around the bag and do a seam. And I had it pretty much down to, I can do 4 seams and then stitch the bottoms closed. So I've got the tops. These are going to fold in and be the sides. There is going to be a square at the bottom, and the square at the bottom, it doesn't really matter which way. Again, I'm putting them upside down so that I can fold the bag in. So there is going to be a square at the bottom. It takes, again, 13 squares, so it's pretty big to pin it together. And then I'll pause the lab and I'll take you guys back into where I usually sit so I can show you how I put them together, or how I do the stitching. So I have so far where the two handles would be, where the two sides would come up. This is going to be the bottom square. And the bottom square, I mean, you could make just a plain granny for the bottom square, because half it's going to be right side up and half it's going to be upside down because you're folding it in half. And then I'm going to take the rest of the squares, because I want to make sure that they are all facing in the right direction. So if you look at my bag, this is the top where the handles are, and you can see all the tops. This is the inside. You can see all the tops of the heads are facing towards the handles, including where I fold them in for the sides. And then I'm going to take the rest of my squares and top right side up, I'm going to fill in for this side of the bag and do the same thing. I'm just pinning through, and I like to use the big ones because then I only have to use one. So I'm pinning through. Sorry if I'm shaking the table here. So I'm going to make sure I pin each side, because that way I have my bag totally pinned together when I start stitching. And that includes like my bottom sides here, because that's going to be the bottom of the bag. So I still want it stitched together so it kind of stays. And I'm only pinning through the one layer. I'm not pinning like this to this. I'm just pinning the one layer. So I did the first half the bag. I'm going to do the second half the bag. Make sure all my squares are pointing in the right directions. I'm just going to pick up that top part of that middle square there. And it really doesn't matter as long as they're pinned. That pin looks a little bit funky. I'm going to pin the bottom here. And I will flip it over after I get it all pinned and show you how it's a bag. Good morning, everybody. Do I have a tutorial on how to make the squares? Yes. The previous couple of lives that I did showed how I made the squares. And after I do my lives, like I said, I'm sorry the table's shaking, but I had to like set this up a little bit differently so I could show you the whole bag. After I do my lives, I take them and I upload them to YouTube as pretty much just as a podcast, since I'm talking through most of them. But it's Nifty Knots, one word, T-O-K. So N-I-F-T-Y-K-N-O-T-Z, and then talk, T-O-K for TikTok. And if you go in there, I have it as like a playlist or podcast or whatever, and you can skip through the video. In the past 2 videos I did, I showed you how to make the squares. It's not a perfect tutorial because everything I do is pretty much just kind of free-handed. Most of the granny squares you find are square. I do have some pictures. Let me grab those pictures so I can show you the difference between my squares and the other squares. So when you look at other squares, again, I'm sorry for the bouncing today. It's a little bit different here. So most of the times you see a square, you see squares that are either attached like that with the big chain loops, or you see the squares that are attached in the loops there. The tutorials or the podcasts or whatever you want to call them that I've done for my past couple lives actually show you how I did them to make them tilted so that I could incorporate them into this bag. So yes, no, I don't have a pattern. Yes, if you go to YouTube and go to my Nifty Knots Talk playlist, I have uploaded all these lives, and over the past couple days I have showed how to do the granny square motifs and how to make the your motif on your granny square pop without actually like stitching it around to get that crisp edge on it. So I did a couple more after I stitched this bag together. I'll show you the couple more. So I'm getting there. Again, I have the top and the bottom of the bag. I have 2 more squares. It does take 13 squares. And then I stitch them together. And it will take me 1 to 2 hours to stitch all this together. So I'll do some of it and I'll answer some questions while I'm stitching and showing you how I use what joining stitch that I use to make it look like this. And then tomorrow I will probably work on handles, and I can show you how I do the handles. But so far this is the birth of a bag, I guess. Get my pins in there. I want my pins to get a big chunk because I want it to hold it together as the bag. And there's my top ones. And there are lots and lots of diagrams. So if you didn't catch how I put this together, if you Google Granny Square Tote Bag, there are tons and tons skulls. I love that. You're just learning. I'm just learning to crochet. I'd love to get that level of skill. You know, to be honest with you, it's more, if you know how to crochet, crocheting is basically just yarning over and pulling up a loop. It's just creating a knot. Oh, thank you so much for the compliment. It's basically just yarning over and pulling up a loop and making a knot. And if you can do a chain stitch and you know how to hold your yarn and your hook to do a chain stitch and a single crochet, the rest of the stitches are basically the same. It's just a combination of yarning over and pulling through loops. So, and don't be afraid of it. You can, I mean, that's where all these stitches come from, because somebody just tried something different. If you can, like I said, if you can tie your first knot, then you can sit there and you can chain this chain. Everything else you do is pretty much the same. Your single crochet you would put through, and you would do single crochet. Your double crochet is just a yarn over and then pulling through loops. A treble crochet would be yarn over twice and pull up loops. I mean, and you can see how, like, just doing those 3 different stitches with the 3 different stitch lengths made a different shape. And then you can get into crocheting in the front or the back loops, which is what I use to make my motifs pop off of my granny squares. I utilize the front and the back stitches, because you see the back stitch here is taller than the front stitch here, so when you turn it over, if you crocheted in the loops that are behind here, you get this nice crisp edge of loops. So, and don't be afraid of it, just try it. If you can read a pattern, if you know the different stitches, and I will say this, there are two different sets of terminology when you read patterns, and don't be afraid of them. It's pretty easy. SL slip stitch, SC single crochet, DC double crochet, HDC half double crochet. It's pretty much just initials for the stitches, so that sorry, I can't. I just learned so much in such a short time. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry I have to keep getting up. I have to, the camera's a little bit further away and it's set up a little bit different just so I could get my bag put together here. But here is, you can see all my pins, but if you look, I have them pinned together so that I have the whole bag pinned together so I know where all the stitches are going to be. So that's my 13 squares that I have them pinned together. I do have the past 2 lives and tutorials that I did for making the squares. I have them, it's the counting and the turning. You know what? It's still going to get you. Even, you know, I've been doing this 40 plus years. I've been doing this since like the 1970s. Let me tell you what, your best friends, and I found this out because, thank you very much. And I found this out when I started making things other than, like my crazy old aunts and my mother would sit and crochet blankets, and that's basically all they would do is sit and crochet blankets. And then when I started having kids of my own, thank you very much. When I started having my kids of my own, I started to want to make other things. So I have a couple of podcasts on tutorial and like toys and amigurumi, and thank you very much. And I'm sorry, I can't read like who's making all the comments because I'm a little bit too far away. My old eyes don't see that far, but I started teaching myself different tips and tricks to be able to do things like this, and I realized that, oh my God, it's just basically the same thing, just done in a different part of the stitch, or it's done turning the stitch, or it's done with a taller stitch, or just like when you start things with a magic loop. A lot of people are afraid of a magic loop. Well, you know, if you don't like the magic loops and the magic rings, you don't have to use a magic loop or a magic ring. You can use a chain 2 method. In any pattern, in any tutorial I do, I have instructions for both a magic ring or magic loop and the chain 2 method, which would be chain 2, single crochet your first round in the second chain from the stitch, and then continue from there. I'm getting off track here. Always, always, if you're worried about your counts and things like that, use stitch markers. Always put stitch markers in your first. Sometimes, depending on what I'm doing, I put a stitch marker in my first and my last stitch so that I can count. And yeah, I still do that. Even though I've been doing this for that long, I still do that. I still use my stitch markers. I don't count on my brain to count because I can't count on my brain to count, if that's not a mouthful. I am going to press the button on my coffee maker and make some tea. And then I'm going to take you guys back over to my couch where I usually sit, and I will show you how I stitch this bag together so I can still talk to you while I do that. So don't go anywhere. Won't even take me a minute. But just came in and do have a tutorial. Yes, as I was saying, all of what I do for my TikTok lives are tutorials. Pretty much showing you how I've done things. I started off with the basic amigurumi animals and showed you how to make the different things for that. There are patterns for that up on my website that are free. You just go in and use them. And then this week, because I sold one of these last week, I was so excited. I decided that this week I would do the tutorials on how to do the skulls. All of these lives that I do, when I'm done, then as soon as I'm done, as soon as TikTok's done processing the live, I go back and I upload it to YouTube. So if you wanted to go back and watch any of the tutorials on like how the skulls are made, how I adapted them to be tilted because I like the bags. That is all on YouTube. I do believe it's just Nifty Knots. It's just Nifty Knots. I upload all these lives as a podcast, Nifty Knots Talk, T-O-K, Knots with a Z. So that if you wanted to go back and you wanted to flip through the videos to see different parts of them, you can pull all these videos that I do live in the mornings back up to see the tutorials on how I actually did these things. But so now you can see now I pinned them together and I paid attention. I got all my skulls right on that side, all my skulls right on that side. And now, only because I like sitting in my chair because I can see, maybe I should just move over. I can see a little bit better on the screen and I can show you a little bit closer. I just have it back this far today. I can show you a little bit closer how I actually do the joining stitch. So let me brew myself a cup of tea there. I'll take you guys with me, if you don't mind. The Hoppy dog, messy house. I don't know that any of you guys care, but my Huffy dog will follow me. For those of you that are new, it is Sir Charles. Sir Charles is my chocolate lab, and he is in charge of the chocolate factory. So it's Sir Charles in charge of the chocolate factory. And if you give me just a few minutes here to get set up, I will start stitching that bag together. I had to readjust my tripod here to move it into my kitchen so that you guys could see. So I'm going to have to readjust my tripod again here. Sorry. It goes sub to your YouTube. Have at it. Hey, have a good day, and I hope it helps. I mean, some of it's a little bit scattered, most of it's a little bit close. I usually, when I do it, I'm going to try to bend this, so just kind of bear with me for a second. I sit about, I'll turn this to, sorry, this is like, I should have had two of them. I wish I had two of them. That way I can do it from two different places. Okay, this is a pain. Let me see if I can turn it this way. Nope. I'm working on it. Oh my god, I hope you guys are like bearing with me here. Try to get this thing set up again the way I had it so that you guys can all see me. That's probably better. In my chair, in my little craft corner here. And I know as soon as I put this on, it's going to fall to the side. Be totally... Oh, that might work. I might just have to move over a little bit. Again, I'm really, really sorry. I just knew that I would not be able to pin that. I hope to get good enough to do something like this. You will. Like I said, it's just a matter, really a matter of, just a matter of being able to put the different stitches different ways. You know, just your yarn over, your law enforcement, listening to jail tapes and cushioning at my desk. I love it. Yeah, I used to be a nurse, and I would take my stuff with me so that overnights I would be able to, see, did that work? Oh, that worked a little bit better. Oh, this is a pain. I need to get a second one of these if I'm going to start doing videos at my kitchen table and here. It's all just a matter of doing it in different combinations. It's all really the same. What I was going to say, though, is if you're reading patterns, And I'll tell you this as I grab my bag so I can start stitching it together for you. But if you're reading patterns, there are two different sets of terminology. One set of terminology is US based, another set of terminology is UK based. And so for the US terminology, you would chain, slip stitch, single crochet, and I'll show you real quick here. But you would chain, slip stitch, single crochet. The UK terminology has the same terms, but they're a little bit different. So, yeah, this will work. So, a chain is a chain. So, the UK terminology, or the US terminology, your chain is your chain, right? Chain is your chain. For a single crochet, in the US, you would put your hook through your loop, pull it through once, and pull it through twice. Like I said, I wish you guys could like holler at me when I'm off screen. Pull it through twice. So then you get, close my blind here a little bit so you can see a little bit better. So then you get, no, that's worse. You get your single crochet, right? Your single crochet. Now, in UK terms, a single crochet is actually a slip stitch. So it kind of comes down one. So in the United States, we would do that single crochet. For the half double crochet, we would yarn over and come through all 3 loops. For a double crochet, we would yarn over and go through 2 and 2. That would be our single, half, double, and then treble. You would wrap around twice in 1, 2, 3, which is why we would call it a treble, because after you would yarn over and pull through your loop, you're actually pulling through the 2 loops 3 times. So that's where you would get that from. Now, when you read a pattern with UK terms and you think, oh my God, I did everything right, why didn't it turn out? It's because UK terms are a little bit different. UK terms, when you're doing a single crochet, you're actually doing a slip stitch. So you're just putting it through and you're pulling it through 2 loops at one time. You're doing a slip stitch. And then I do believe the double crochet in UK terms would be our single crochet, because you would go through 1 and you would go through 2. Like, they count the yarn over and pulling through the chain as the 1, 2 for the double. And to do a triple crochet in UK terms, you would put your yarn over, and then again they would count going through your chain as 1, and then 2, and then 3. So, I mean, it's the same stitch. It's just different terminology. So when you're reading your pattern, if it says UK terms, do yourself, and you're used to American terms, do yourself a favor and look them up, because I made that mistake once and couldn't figure out, like, what did I do wrong? You know, I followed the pattern to the letter. What did I do wrong? But yeah, so there is a difference in terms. Now, I'm going to take my bag. And this is why I like to pin the whole thing together, because I am going to now start crocheting it together. And I'm just going to go from one point. I'm going to go all the way down. I'm going to flip it over and come all the way up. And that way I don't have to do like one stitch at a time to do like this row or this row, or, you know, or just kind of, I'm getting a little bit scattered here. So let me show you how I join my granny squares, and I'll do this for a little bit, and then tomorrow I will make straps for these bags. Tomorrow's Thursday, yeah, so by the end of the week I should have the bag done. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my points, And I want to make sure I get my center stitches for each of my points to start with. So there's my, this is where my handle would be, this is where my handle would be. I'm going to take these 3 points here where they start. I'm going to take these 2 stitches here to begin with, and it's a little bit, might be a little bit hard to see because it's dark. But I'm going to go into the very corner stitch. Typically I marked them, but I didn't. I'm going to go into the very corner stitch, and I'm using both loops, and I'm going to make my slip stitch. I'll tuck this to the back so it doesn't get, and then I'm going to pick up the middle loop on this side, which is this one, and I do the first stitch at the top as a slip stitch because I like it just a little bit tighter at the top. So now that I've done that, and I'm going to take this pin out because I'm going to work down this row first. So I'm going to take this pin out so that you can see my stitches, and I'm going to work down this row. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my working yarn to the back. I'm going to go to the next stitch. I have to put the light on to see this. Let me see if this, that doesn't wash things out too much for you guys. So I would go to the next stitch, and I would pull up a loop, finish my single crochet, and then come to the next loop on this, on the square that I'm joining, insert my hook, and pull my loop through. So again, I would go to, these are the 2 that I'm joining. These are the 2 that I'm joining. I would go into the loop on the first one, the next loop. I would pull it up, finish my single crochet. It's a little bit loose there. So I would pull it up, and I would finish my single crochet, drop my loop, go into the next stitch on the one that I want to join, pick my loop back up and pull it through. Were you able to see that pretty decent? Let me see here. So I'm going to, these are the 2 that I'm joining right here. I'm going to go into the next loop, and I'm going to complete a single crochet, and the one I want to join it to, I'm going to pick up the next loop, and I'm going to pull it through. So again, the next loop, I'm going to, on this first one, I'm going to do a single crochet, go into the next loop that I want to join it to on the second square, and I'm going to pull it through. And again, I'm going to do a single crochet on the first side, pull it up, and pull the loop from the bottom to the top on the second side, go into the next stitch and do my single crochet, drop my loop, pick up my loop from the second square that I'm joining, and pull it up, go back to the first square, single crochet, go to the second square that's being joined, insert my hook, and pull it through, go back to the first square, and in the next stitch do a single crochet, pick up my second square, and in the next stitch I'm going to pick that loop back up and pull it through. Did I teach myself? Yes. The majority of what I've done, I've taught myself. The basics were, I'm just going to do a couple more of these while I talk to you guys. The basics were taught to me by my aunts and my mother when I was really little. I was probably somewhere in between 5 and 10 years old. And my mother was a seamstress in a dress shop, so I learned how to sew from her. All of my aunts, including my mother, crocheted. I had one grandmother who did needlepoint. So I kind of learned the basics from everybody. And as I got older, and the internet came about, it was a little bit easier to go, hey, look at all these neat things I could actually do with this. So YouTube was fantastic. Finding patterns and tutorials was fantastic. So yeah, over the years, it's a combination of the basics that I was taught. And that's why when I tell you, if you can do a chain stitch and a single crochet, and you know how to yarn over, and you know how to hold your hook and your yarn to work the stitch, you can pretty much do anything, because it's all a basic combination of that. Like even the loop stitches that you do, most of the loop stitches that you do, and I'll do one just to show you, would be a combination of inserting your hook, going around the loop a little bit differently, and then finishing your single crochet. Now, to take that one step further, you can do a loop stitch a little bit easier, and you can pull your loop down like that, and pull it through and pull it through, and then go to the next stitch and pull your loop down as far as you wanted, and pull it through and pull it through. So I mean, there are different ways that you can make loop stitches, but it's basically all just, where is that pattern from? Okay, so the pattern for the skull itself, just this part, just the skull itself, I purchased a pattern for the skull granny square, and the granny square came straight and not tilted like I needed for the bags. If you go to my website is not a blog. It's not full of ads. It's not full of, all this other stuff. So if you go to my website, I have at the top or in the menu what's called a shout outs page. And that is links to the patterns that I've purchased, because I don't feel it's fair to the person that's selling the pattern to give the pattern away once I've purchased it. But I will tell you this, it's $1.50. So I did the skull exactly like she did in her pattern. But then instead of completing the granny square the way she did it, again, if you go into YouTube, I have all these lives uploaded into YouTube. You'll see making your motifs pop on your granny squares. I show how to do this with the crisp edge, and I also show how I use my counts to make it a tilted granny for my bags instead of a square granny with the motif going up and down this way. So you're welcome. So if you go to that page, you can find her, and I found that was the best skull, the one that I liked the best. So if you go to that page and go to the shout outs page, I think I put that at the top, maybe the second one, I don't know, there's like 5 or 6 of them there. But you can go and you can click on that link. It takes you right to her site. That pattern was $1.50. And then if you go to YouTube, where I've uploaded my previous lives, you can flip back and click through to see how I did the granny, or did the skull, and then how I made the skull into the granny square so that it popped off the motif popped off the granny. I have a couple of other ones that I did yesterday to show you that the skulls were a little bit different, because there's 30 stitches around the skull before I start granny stitch. These two that I did to show you, these two motifs that I did, there's exactly 24 stitches around this circle here. So to make this motif pop off, and actually you see it's not sewn on, it's actually stitched together, is a little bit easier because you've got like every other stitch. So if you know where you want your corners to be, all you have to do is start your corner, and every other stitch you're going to have two granny clusters in between each corner to start, if you start with the 24 count circle. And then the other one that I did yesterday, which I'm going to work on this because I kind of like this concept, although I'm not happy with my final doodle here. But the other one was a frog, and it's the same thing. If you do, I was just showing, if you do, where is the, that is my crazy dog, huffing and puffing because he knows I'm sitting here. But if you do a motif that has a circle with 24, it's really easy to adapt that motif in that granny square to be either tilted or to be a square square. It is a square square. I'm just holding it funny. But the frog I'm actually going to work on this week or this weekend because I want his arms to kind of curl and be springy a little bit, but I still want them to be off of the, and I'm going to use that to make another bag as well. So yeah, those are the bags that I was in the process of making. I think his eyes need to be a little bit bigger, just things like that. The bunny was, if you, thank you, I'm going to get rid of him in a second. The bunny is, Sir Charles, would you like to say hi? Charlie. Yeah, my Huffy Lab. The bunny, I actually just Googled crocheted bunny motifs, and this one came up, and it's all worked together. It's 1 round, 2 rounds. This is like a chain 4 picot in between, and this is like a chain 13 and joined as a picot. So after you do your 2 rounds, you start with your face, and then you just do your 13 chains and your 13 chains and join them as picots, which is pretty much what I do with the frogs, arms and legs, and I've made much better frogs than this. I hate to even show this one. This is the one that I played chicken with, that's right, because I have, and I got them all done. I just have to now do them on squares. That is the one I played chicken with. I wanted to make sure I had enough rabbits because to try the pattern to see if I liked it on the square, I just grabbed this like little teeny tiny ball that I had in my scraps, and that's what I did. And that's how this started, because I just kind of grabbed scrap yarn. So I know, yay, I love it when I win. I do usually weigh my yarn, so I thought I had enough, but I was like right on that cusp there, even weighing it to know whether or not I had enough to make more bunnies. But you can see I don't have my eyes glued down. But yeah, so I'm going to make a couple of those bags. Let me get rid of Mr. Huff and Puff here, because now he's standing at the door, and then I'll come right back and I'm going to do a little bit more of that. I usually sit here for about an hour before I start losing my voice, because all I do is sit here and chatter away, which is why I took the suggestion to upload my lives as podcasts, because all I do is talk through them anyway. And if somebody wants to sit and watch, you can actually click through to see the different parts. So you can, on YouTube, you don't have to sit and watch the whole live. You can click through the different parts so that you can get to which part you wanted to watch and which part of the tutorial you want to watch. But again, I'm making the granny square bag, and I am stitching it together. So I'll pick this up so that you can see this again. And when I get to the end, I will show you that you don't have to be afraid of the corners. So again, that's and thank you for bearing with me having to move everything this morning so that I could pin this together and show you, and then come back here and crochet. And then I pick up the next stitch on that one, and I go through. I go to the first granny square, and I do a single crochet, drop my loop. Again, I wish you guys could like yell at me when I'm off camera. Go to the second granny square that I'm joining, put my hook in the next stitch, pick my loop back up, and just pull it through. I go to the first granny square that I'm joining, next stitch, and I do a single crochet. Then I come to the second granny square that I'm going to join it to, and I put my hook in and I pull it through. So you can see, even with me doing this, everything is basically just a combination of yarning over and where you put your hook. So, you know, experiment with it. So again, the first one I'm joining, I do my single crochet. The second one, I put it in the next stitch and I pulled the loop through. Let's see if we can see it better this way. So this is the first granny stitch, the first granny square I'm going to join. So I'm going to put it into the next loop, and I'm going to single crochet. This is the one that I'm joining it to. So I'm going to pick up the next stitch on this one, pick up my next loop, and pull it through again. And I'm almost at the corner. So when I get to my corners, next stitch is the corner. Not this stitch, but the next one is the corner. So this is my corner stitch. So after I've secured my corner stitches for the first ones, for the first row that I'm doing, I'm going to continue down, and I have these pins together. So now that I've done this one, this is why I pin everything together at once, I'm going to continue down to here. So the next stitch I pick up is going to be the corner stitch on this one and the corner stitch on this one. Let me see if I can kind of get this so you can see it, because what's the point if you can't see it? So if I'm going down this way, then the next stitch that I want to do my single crochet into is going to be the corner of this one, which is, this has to be behind. So had to look in the light there, the black thread. So this is the corner. So I'm going to the corner of that one, pulling it a little bit tighter to finish my single crochet. And then I'm going to pick up this one, and I'm going to go into the corner of this one. 1, 2, 3. I have 3 in each one, so 3 in each corner. And I'm going to pick it up, then I'm going to put it through that one like that. And then I'm just going to continue down this side of these to make a second stitch. And then when I get to the bottom of these, I'm going to flip my bag over and work my way just the same stitch. And when I go across this way, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up the corner stitch, pick up the corner stitch, and I'm just going to work in that corner stitch again, just going across the other way. So now that we've done that, let me take my pin out. I'm sorry. I will always bump that camera. Always. So let me take this pin out. And this is the next. Did I get it stuck? Of course I got it stuck. There it is. Okay, so now you can see I've worked my way down this side, and I'm going to keep going straight down. So I'm just going to go into the next stitch and single crochet, and I'm going to go into the next stitch and pull up my loop. Now I know it looks like it's a little bit tight here where the corners are, and that's because I'm working this row, but this row is not worked yet. Once you work this row, it pulls that. You can kind of see how it looks like it's a little bit larger than the other stitches, but just keep continuing going down that row, because when you start to go this way and work these rows, it will pull this all together, and it will make like a nice neat little X in the center there. And so I'm going to go to the next one, and I'm going to do my single crochet, go into the second square that I'm joining, the next stitch, and I'm going to pull that loop up from the bottom to the top. So this one I'm going to grab and I'm going to single crochet the way I normally would, and this one I'm going to go in from the top, and I'm going to grab my stitch and pull it through. Single crochet, go into my next stitch on the other granny square, and pull it through. So you can see now how I'm just, because I pinned them all together, I can just go down a straight line, and when I get to the corner here at the bottom, I can just keep going. I can just flip this over and keep working the same stitch so I have less ends to weave in. So I just go, ooh, you like the method? Thank you very much. And that's what gives it that like zigzag look, which I liked. And like I said, you don't have to worry about the corners being funky, because when you start going this way, it pulls that corner together and makes it look neat. Let me let my dog in, and then I will grab my other bag to show you. That way you can see that you don't have to worry about that stitch looking a little bit bigger. It just will pull itself all together. So here's my other bag. I'm sorry if I keep getting up and down too, but it's much easier. I had my hip replaced in January. This is my second one, and it's easier for me to get up and down pulling the V-stitch or just half the V-stitch. It's not a V-stitch at all. I'll explain that in a second. It's not a V-stitch at all. So what I have here is my two granny squares. This one and this one that I'm going to join. And it is just simply a single crochet. Wish I had some way to hold this up here like this while I did it. Sorry, I know this looks kind of funny. So it's not a V-stitch. I'm going to take the next stitch on the granny square that I want to join, and I'm actually going to do a single crochet. Okay? And once I've done that single crochet, I'm going to drop that loop, and this is the next stitch on the second square that I'm going to join to it, and I'm going to take it and pull it up through. So it looks like a V, but it's not really a V, it's just a single crochet. And this is the single crochet stitch, and this is the top loop of the, this side is the single crochet, on the first granny square, and the second granny square is the top stitch. So it gives it looks like it's a V, but it's not really. It's just a single crochet, and I pull the loop back up through the second one, and that's what joins them. So the first one, let me see if I can find something to stick behind here so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so these are the two. I know, I improvise everything. So these are the two granny squares that I'm joining. So this granny square, I would go in and I would do a single crochet. And then I take that loop off my hook, go into the next stitch from the second one, pick my loop back up and pull it through. Can you see it a little bit better that what? Use it. Yeah, it would be pretty. Yes, it does add detail to the bag. But that's how I did it. I don't know if that was better that way. But so I'm going to the first granny square, I'm going to go into the next stitch, and I'm going to pull up a single crochet. I'm going to drop my loop. I'm going to pull up the net, put my hook into the one that I want to join it to, and I'm going to pull my loop through. Is it easier to see that way? Yes. Okay. So next stitch is going to be a single crochet on this side. Go to the second side that you want to join. Pick your loop back up and pull it through. So first side is the single crochet. Second is pull up the loop. There is also in my scroll through my videos on my profile, just my videos, there's a bag that I did that is, I think it's like purple and tan. The squares are like purple and tan, and I have a really close up of how I did this. Or you can go back to my YouTube channel later on this afternoon. It takes me, sometimes it takes an hour to get these uploaded, but it will definitely be on there. It will definitely be on there by this afternoon if you want to go back and watch bits and pieces of this. I mean, you don't have to watch all my rambling, but at least you can get like the major points you need. You can kind of flip through. Thank you to everybody that's joining. I am working on joining together my granny squares to make my tote bag. So I'm almost down to this corner, and I should be right. If I'm not right, to be honest with you, because there's so many stitches and so much stitching, if you're off by a count or two, it's like to fudge it isn't really gonna, you're not really gonna see it, because the pattern's gonna take away from that extra stitch or that stitch you had to take away. But I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 will be my corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's close enough. Because you can always go in that same stitch again, like I just did there, and pull up the next stitch. And you really are not going to see that. So I'm going to go through this one. I'm going to finish up to the corner, and then I'm going to flip my bag over. do a second one in this one too, because I think I'm off by 2 stitches. This one and this one. This one and this one. See, this is 1, 2, 3. So this is the center one, and this is the center one. Usually when I do this, but I thought it would be really difficult for you guys to see, I take my granny squares, and when I'm doing, you notice how I have a single crochet. I get the book stuck. I usually use a needle, mind blown. I cannot stand to pick on my needle. If I have to sew pieces on, it makes me crazy. So like the basic amigurumi doll that I have a pattern for on my website, which is free, is all one piece. It's worked head, body, down the one leg, and then you crochet around the hole for the other leg, you crochet around the holes for the arms, like you don't stitch things together. I cannot stand to stitch things together. Now the pieces for those dolls, like I did a cow, and it has ears and horns and a snout. Those things I have to stitch on. Yeah, sometimes you can't get away from it. But when I'm doing something like this, I would much rather stitch them than not stitch them. And you see how I got to the corner of the bag at the bottom. So I'm just going to go from there, and I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm going to just keep working up that same seam. You can see if I turn it. I'm just going to keep working up that same seam so that I have less, and it'll work all the way back up to the top, pretty much where I started the first one. It'll end where I started the first one. So that way, thank you very much. Thank you. But yeah, and I liked the aesthetic of that look there. But this is the final bag when it's done. It is a tote bag. Turn this light off. It's a tote bag, and I will show you how I do, when I do the handles, I'll show you how I do the top decorative stitch on the handles too, and that's the same way. I will not pick up a needle, I pick up my hook. And then I probably won't get into the tutorials about lining them unless somebody's really wants to know. Then I can, I guess, do some of those lives. But when I line my bags, I like to line my handles because I don't want any of it to stretch. I don't want it to sag. You know, you could go to the library and come home with a stack of books in this, and it's not going to sag. It's got the denim all the way through it. It's got a zipper pocket that's ginormous. And on the other side I have 2 big pockets, and I used it's your normal size lint roller to show how big the pockets were. So cell phones will fit in there, or pretty much anything will fit in those big pockets. So you don't lose your keys in the bottom of the bag, because that's what I tend to do. The magnetic clasps. So that's how I finish the whole bag off when I'm totally done stitching it together. But I will go over, I should have it all stitched together by this afternoon or tomorrow. The more pockets, the better. Absolutely. Lining bags are pretty easy. All you basically have to do is cut the shape of the bag and stitch it. You know, right sides together and stitch it. And then you put it in. And when I line, some of my bags I hand stitch my linings in, but these bags I wanted them to be a little bit sturdier. So I actually, and I don't know if you can see, after I top stitched and I hemmed my lining, I used transparent polyester thread. Polyester will tolerate the heat and be a little bit stronger than acrylic. So if your transparent thread says acrylic, Coats & Clark makes a nice polyester one. And then, yes, I use a sewing machine and that transparent thread to stitch it to there, because I want it to be more secure when I make these bags. If I'm making bags that are a little bit lighter and they don't need to carry as much weight, sometimes I'll hand stitch them in. But if I'm making bags that I want to be sturdier, I will use the transparent thread. And when you flip it to the other side, you can't even, if you line your, you can see where I've lined my lining up to my stitches. If you keep it relatively in the same space, when you turn it to the crocheted side, you don't even really see that stitch line. It just kind of falls into place with the stitches and disappears. So yes, when I'm making heavier duty bags like this, I use this. The other thing I do when I make a bag that I want to be like really hefty is I use acrylic thread. And I've had a lot of people ask me on here, oh, you're welcome. I've had a lot of people ask me why I use acrylic yarn. I'm sorry, not thread, yarn, instead of cotton. I use acrylic yarn for two different reasons. For one, it's sturdy, it's going to hold up. It softens up as you use it. So this whole bag, even though it's like super big, once it softens up, it might grow like maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, because the fibers will soften up. But I just make my lining just that little bit bigger. So if the bag does stretch, it's not, you know, from the yarn softening up, it's not going to matter with the lining. The other reason why I like to use acrylic for my more durable bags is because cotton tends to do two things, and I've learned this over the years. Cotton will absorb a stain that's you're less likely to be able to get out no matter what you do. You know, I have 5 kids. I've removed stains. The cotton yarns that they use do hold the stains, whereas the acrylic yarns tend to not hold a stain if you dump something on them quite as much as the cotton yarns will. My sign I'm talking too much. But on an end note, the other reason why I don't use the cotton yarns for things like this is because I find that if you throw it in the washer and the dryer, and yeah, you know what, I want you to be able to buy this bag and throw it in the washer and dryer. I want you to use it every day. I want you to throw it in the corner. I want you to stack your books in it. You'd love a lining tutorial? Yeah, I'll probably do that. I have a couple bags to make, and then I will eventually get to how I line them. But no matter what you do with the cotton, it tends to fade. This is not going to fade. This color is going to stay the color it is in the acrylic yarn forever. The cotton yarn, if you throw it in the washer and the dryer, and again, why don't you hand wash it? I don't necessarily want somebody to buy something that they have to be careful with. This is a tote bag. It's meant to be carried to the beach. It's meant to, yes, a lining tutorial, another one. Okay, you try to line a blanket first. Sometimes it's easier to line a blanket first. Sometimes it's easier to start with a smaller swatch. If you're going to line a blanket, start in the very center and work your way out. One side, out the other side. Start in the middle again, smooth it out, and go from one side to the next side. And once you have those 4 panels, it's a little bit easier, because if you don't, I talk too much. If you don't, when you're lining a blanket, it can be start in the middle. If you're going to actually line the blanket, like quilt the blanket, start in the middle, like the middle of the blanket, and work your way out. If you're not going to stitch the front and back pieces together to line them, and you're just going to work around the edge, you don't have to really start in the middle. You can just cut your pieces and start stitching them together. I do suggest that if you were going to line a blanket, and I'm going to end on this note, but I will show you this because I do have one sitting like right here. If you are going to line a blanket, this blanket that I made is actually fleece on both sides. So it's fleece on both sides, and it's huge. So it had like this on this side and this on this side. You can see how my stitches are really even. Invest, if you don't have a rotary cutter, or if you do have a rotary cutter, small baby blanket will be easier. This was a pain to like quilt together. But if you're going to use a lining, this is fleece that I used. Invest in a skip, I think it's called a skip cut blade for a rotary cutter. And your skip cut blade, what it does is it's I mean, I don't have a picture, but you could Google them. Your skip cut blade looks like a gear. So when you roll your rotary blade across the either the fleece or the flannel, you will see that it puts this tiny hole exactly, since you're rolling it, exactly the same width apart, so that you can then pick up the stitches. You can see the holes a little bit better. So it just creates this little cut, and that's what the skip blades do for the rotary cutters for lining things. But yeah, this is like years old, but it was all flannel. But if you're not going to stitch the front to the back, and you're just going to stitch around the edges, thank you. You're welcome. You don't, and it's a smaller baby blanket. You can maybe put like tack a stitch in the middle if you wanted to. You don't really have to like quilt together the top and the bottom because it's smaller. You can just go around the edge with your skip blade, and then there's different sizes, so depending on how big your stitches are, you just go across your fabric with that skip blade, and you don't have to worry about trying to push your needle through there. You don't have to worry about or your hook through there. You don't have to try to worry about trying to embroider a chain stitch across the top so that you can then put your border around it after you've put it together. I do like the skip blades when I do things like that, but yeah, so before I start coughing even more, since I'm talking my brains out, this is the bag, and this is the one I've been working on. Hopefully tomorrow I will have that one done and stitched together, and we can start working on handles, and I can show you how I do the decorative stitch on the handles. And by the end of the week, maybe I will have one bag put together, which would be fantastic. Again, I do have some free patterns on my website if you want to go to my website. So far, it's just for, thank you very much. She loves the strap. Thank you very much. So far, the patterns I have up there are for the amigurumi that I've done so far. The tutorials and the lives that I've been doing Oh, you're welcome, Janie. Thank you so much, by the way. Did you get my message? That was unnecessary, and I really appreciated it. Thank you very much. Um, but all of these, when I'm done and I end my lives, I go back and I up download them and upload them to YouTube. So if you want to go back, you can go back and watch like whatever pieces you want. I try to keep each one at about an hour. It's probably been about an hour now, maybe a little bit more, because I tend to chatter away until I can't talk anymore. But yeah, so that's the continuation of my bag, stitching it together. Hopefully by tomorrow I'll have it all stitched together. Go visit my website if you want patterns for dolls. The link to the skull that I used is also on the shoutouts page. It's right in your direct messages in TikTok. So if you go to your messages and scroll down, you can just see it. How do you get you? How do I get your? How do you get the tutorials? Okay, so when I do the lives from TikTok, so when I show you all the things that I've done here, and I've given you all the information that I have here, and I end my live video, I then upload this same live video to YouTube, sort of like as a podcast. I have other videos on YouTube too, but if it's Nifty Knots Talk, T-O-K, and Knots is with a Z. If you go to my Nifty Knots channel, you will see the live videos that I've uploaded to that playlist, and that playlist is strictly the live videos that I've done on TikTok, so that you can go back, so that if you saw something like right now, you can't go back and find other people's live videos. So I upload these live videos to YouTube, so the ones that I've done, so like today's, depending on how long it takes my computer to upload it, today's video should definitely be on there by later this afternoon. Niftynknotz. So Niftyk. I can't write it. It'll show backwards. But it's Niftynknotz. And if you go to, I think I have my YouTube on my link tree. So if you go to my bio in TikTok, you should be able to find a link to my YouTube there in my link tree. But yeah, it's Niftynknotz, Nifty Knots. And then the playlist is Nifty Knots Talk, T-O-K. And there are all my live videos that I've done on TikTok and all the demonstrations that I've done. I'm not sure. Did you get that? Yes. But one word. I think it's one word. Although you might be able to find it like that too, because I tagged some of my videos. But yes, that's it. Niftynknotz. And like I said, the easy way to do it is just go to my profile, and I have a link. I'm pretty sure I have a link for my YouTube right on my link tree in my profile. So it should take you right to it, which is probably the easier way than searching for it. But yeah, so later on today, you'll be able to watch this crazy chaos and whatever, skip through and pick up whatever pieces you wanted to see and didn't want to see. And tomorrow, hopefully, I'm working on handles and I have it all stitched together. Thank you so much, everybody that's joined me. I really, truly appreciate it. I appreciate all the support. This is, something I've done forever since I've been a kid. It's something I love to do. It's something I just keep doing. It's fun. It's like, keeps my brain and my hands busy. I work off hours. I work different hours than most people, and I work from home. So the time that I'm not working, I do have time to sit and do this, and I'm very, very very fortunate. And yeah, it's, you know, when you realize that it's not that difficult, you want to share like how easy it is to just pick up different things. And sometimes it does take a little bit of time to learn. It took me a while to learn. I taught myself how to knit. I taught myself how to tat. I do other things like that. But yeah, it's fun. I love to sit and do it. So if you want to go back and watch my lives, Nifty Knots Talk on YouTube. You can find the link in my link tree in my bio. And I think I need to go get some water. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it.